Love knows no bounds. Order up, Ron yelled. Trisha was so tired that she could not see straight, but she made it to the counter to get her customer's order. She had worked a double today at the diner because Brenda, the other server, called in, yet again. Plus, she could use the extra money. The books for this semester's classes were crazy expensive. Trisha, or Trish as everyone called her, was in her last year of school to complete her bachelor's degree. She wasn't your traditional college student, at the age of 26, but she figured better late than never. Trish grew up on a rough side of town, in southwest Atlanta. The youngest of 6, Trish learned very early to fend for herself. Her mother was not very attentive or motherly and pretty much left Trisha and her siblings to fend for themselves. The presence of a father was non-existent. There were many days that they didn't know where their next meal would come from. As soon as she turned 18, Trish left that environment to try to figure things out on her own. Standing 5'9" with curves for days, Trish drew attention to herself whether she wanted to or not. Some of the attention was not so good for a young and impressionable woman. She made some bad choices before she straightened up. She was trying to do things right now. Things weren't easy, but she was making it. Thank you and come again. Trish closed the door after the last customer and locked it. Phew, I am so tired I don't know what to do. I just want to go home, take a long soak in my tub and crash. On second thought, I think I'll just take a quick shower tonight. I am too tired, Trish expressed to no one in particular as she bussed her tables. Why don't you go ahead and get started on that? We will finish up here. You've been here all day, Kim, the owner, said. Are you sure? Yeah, besides, you have to open up in the morning anyway. Okay, if you're sure. I do appreciate it, Trish said while removing her apron. I will see you all tomorrow then. Good night, Kim said as Trish exited. Trish walked out to her old Buick, careful of her surroundings as it was dark and not a very nice neighborhood. She said a quick prayer after she got in her car that it would crank without much prompting. After 3 turns of the key, the car started and Trish sent up a quick thank you to God before she pulled into the street. The next morning, Trish was waiting in her car for Kim to get there to open the diner. She was still tired from yesterday and from waking early to study for her psychology quiz. She just prayed that the day would not be as long as the previous day. 15 minutes later, Kim pulled into the parking lot and they both exited their vehicles. You get some rest, Trisha? You still look tired, Kim inquired. A little. I will be all right, Trish replied. Kim looked at her, shook her head, but said nothing else. She knew it was pointless. Trish was on a mission and would let nothing, including sleep, prevent her from reaching her goals. What? Oh, nothing, Kim said as they walked into the diner. She turned on the lights and they got to work. Halfway through her shift, Trish felt her energy waning. She was cutting lemons for a customer's tea when, OWW, Trish howled. Everyone in the diner turned toward the counter where Trish was. Kim ran over. What's wrong? What happened? Kim asked. When she approached, she saw the blood seeping through Trish's fingers. I cut my hand, Trish replied. Ron came from the kitchen to investigate. That looks pretty bad, Trish. I think you may need stitches, Ron said. No. I will be okay. I just need to wrap it up. Trish, that cut is deep. I am taking you to the hospital. Brenda, watch the register until I return. Kim's words left no room for discussion. Trish wanted to protest, but Kim's look had her quickly closing her mouth. She had no idea how she'd pay for an visit and she had no insurance. There goes my book money, Trish thought to herself. Kim, you don't have to stay here with me. I can get an Uber or something after I'm done here, Trish said. Although she couldn't really afford to do that, she felt bad that Kim had to leave the diner to bring her to the hospital. You have someone you can call to come here with you? No, then I'm staying. Trish, again, knew it was pointless to argue with Kim when she was like this. So, she just sat back on the hospital bed to wait for the doctor to come. One good benefit of being in a smaller town, the hospital wasn't very busy, so she didn't have to wait long. After a few minutes, one of the most gorgeous men Trish had ever seen walked up to her bed. He was taller than her 5'9" by at least 3 inches. Tall, dark, and handsome was an understatement when trying to describe this man. Hi, Trisha Marsh. I'm Dr. Thomas. Trish just openly stared before Kim nudged her. Yes, that's me, Trish stammered. Dr. David Thomas just smiled at his pretty patient before saying, so I see here that you cut your hand pretty bad according to your chart. May I have a look? Trish slowly extended her hand to the doctor so that he could assess the damage that she'd done. Looks like a pretty clean, but deep cut here. Let us stitch you up and you'll be on your way. Just be more careful in the future. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah. Are you married? Trish thought to herself. No, not at the moment. Okay. Well, I will be right back to get you taken care of. The doctor left the room and a nurse came in a little while later to deliver the items needed for Trish's stitches. That doctor was kinda cute, huh? Kim said, smiling. He was okay. I don't have the time or energy to be thinking about him or any other man, Trish said, trying to get her mind off of the doctor. Even if she were interested, that doctor would not be interested in someone like her, she thought. Yeah. Okay, Kim replied with a smirk. But you're a young and beautiful young lady, Trish. You should have a young man to spend time with and not work all the time. Well, I have goals I'm trying to reach and getting involved with someone right now would be Are you ready for me? David interrupted. Normally, he wouldn't do the stitching, but he was making an exception for this patient. Something about her drew him to her. He couldn't figure it out. Yeah, I guess. Please don't hurt me. You won't feel a thing, he said with a wink and a smile. I think I'm in love, Trish thought with stars in her eyes. Trish was very nervous as David and the nurse began to get her hand together. She had cut her hand diagonally across her palm. As he worked, David began asking Trish questions about herself. This was to calm her, but also so that he could learn more about her. He learned that she worked as a server at Kim's Diner and that she was a college student. He also learned a little about her family. Before long, he was all done and was wrapping her hand to protect the stitches. Okay, pretty lady, we're all done here. Make sure you keep that hand dry and follow up with your regular doctor in a few days. I will be back with your discharge papers. The nurse gave him a strange look, as she normally brought the patient the discharge papers and gave the instructions. David avoided the nurse's eye as he prepared the discharge papers and took them back to Trish's room. Okay, here are your discharge instructions. My number is there on the bottom. Please don't hesitate to call, David said with knowing eyes. Also, don't forget to schedule a follow-up with your primary doctor. Any questions? No. I don't think that I do, Trish replied, trying to avoid his eyes. Okay. Well, you are all done and are free to go. Take care and again don't hesitate to call if you need anything. Trish and Kim got up and left the hospital. I think the doc was flirting with you, Kim said jokingly. No. I think he just had good bedside manners. Trish, no doctor I know gives out his personal phone number. Could the doctor be interested? Kim drove them back to the diner so that Trish could get her car and head home. She insisted that Trish take the rest of the day off. Although she needed the money, Trish was glad because she had a quiz to finish studying for and her hand was throbbing. Kim was back at work for her shift 2 days later. Her injured hand slowed her down a lot, so she wasn't able to serve as many tables as she normally would. She felt it in her tips. But little money was better than no money. Towards the end of her shift, Trish heard the bell chime over the door indicating a new customer had come in. Welcome to Kim's. Trish's voice trailed off when she recognized who her new customer was, Dr. Thomas, the ER doctor. Dr. Thomas, what are you doing here? Kim asked confusedly. It's David. I just left the hospital and figured I'd stop for food before I went home. Can I sit anywhere? Oh, yes. Sorry, Trish said. Trish was visibly flustered as she went through the motions to prepare the table for David. He was the only customer in the diner, so he had her undivided attention as she served him. She took his order then went to the back to get herself together. Isn't that the doctor from the other day? Kim asked. Yes. What do I do? Trish asked. Take the man his food, Kim laughed. Trish rolled her eyes and did just that when his food was done. She sat his grilled chicken plate in front of him and prepared to go back to the kitchen when he stopped her. I don't see anyone else in here. Why don't you sit and talk to me while I eat? David suggested. Okay, Kim replied. They picked up the conversation that they started in the hospital. The conversation flowed freely like they'd known each other for years. They continued to talk as Kim locked the door and began cleaning up. "Oh, look at the time. I didn't realize we'd been talking so long." "Kim, I'm coming to help straighten up," Trish said. "Well, I didn't mean to keep you so long. I enjoyed talking to you. And my dinner, of course. I can't let it be so long again before I come back. I'd forgotten how good the food is here." "Yeah. Ron is a beast in that kitchen," Trish joked. There was a brief pause. "Can I take you out sometime?" David asked, seemingly out of the blue. Trish was taken aback. Yeah. She was attracted to David, but she never imagined that he'd want anything to do with her on that level. "Why?" she asked. David laughed. "Excuse me, why do you want to take me out?" "Well, for one, I enjoy talking to you and I'm attracted to you. I'd like to see if anything is here." Trish took a minute and examined his eyes. She was having trouble believing that someone of his caliber would be interested in her as a server. She heard Kim clear her throat behind her and turned towards her. Kim bucked her eyes and nodded her head towards David as if to say, "Don't be stupid. Tell the man yes." Sure. I'd love to go out with you." She gave David her phone number. He paid his check and promised to call the following day. "Oh, and here is my number, again. I was hoping you'd have taken the hint and called me the first time I gave it to you." He winked at her and left the diner. "Yes, I knew it," Kim proclaimed after he left. Trish rolled her eyes and took the broom from Kim. But she did it with a smile. After that day, things progressed quickly between David and Trish. Though she was skeptical at first of his intentions, Trish grew to trust and started to really enjoy being with him. With David, it was love at first sight. He was just waiting for Trish to realize the same. When she finally did, they lived a life full of happiness and joy.